Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. Hope you enjoy. Mimicry for Fun and Profit, written by Marilyn of Many. When I signed up to be the only human on a ship of tentacle aliens, I expected 3 things. The air would be unpleasantly damp, the crewmates would occupy spaces that I wouldn't think of, so I'd need to make sure that I didn't step on anyone, and I'd get a reputation as the tall one who could reach high shelves without climbing them. While these were all true, I was surprised to have my voice, of all things, treated as a special talent. It came up right away when I met the captain and greeted her with a phrase in her own language. It was all I knew, and I thought that it would be passed off as a thoughtful gesture. I'd practiced the phrase on my ride through the spaceport. My pronunciation was surely terrible, but since the language honestly sounded to me like a mix of squeaks and flatulence, I consider it a success that I could say it at all without dissolving into unprofessional giggles. My masterful effort at keeping a straight face was met with goggle-eyed surprise that looked downright comical on a rusty orange octopus-like alien. But the captain kept her cool too, introducing me to a handful of crewmates that I'd be making deliveries with. The rest of the conversation was thankfully in Galactic Standard. They were impressed again an hour later when I reported a mysterious sound from the hover engine by imitating it. Kind of a faint whirr with a screech chunk. Apparently, this was amazing where they came from. Who knew? I would have loved to introduce them to a parrot, and really blow their minds. As entertaining as it was, my talent was just a passing curiosity as we made our rounds between planets. Something to joke about, to cure boredom, a source of harmless pranks. Something chirped, "Is there a pest on board the ship?" There it is again. But then we made our final delivery run. My human vocal cords got to do something far more important. We were bringing construction materials to a newly terraformed moon, a place staffed with busy robots and a few stressed-out organic types there to oversee everything. They were on schedule to get everything ready for the inhabitants to arrive. Due to an error somewhere, they'd run short on a specific type of welding rod. Thanks to us, they got them in time. But they also had another problem. "We caught some saboteurs," said Tavi, the construction head, her antennae twitching uneasily. Her species was new to me, with a strong resemblance to an earth beetle, all iridescent green and faceted eyes. Oddly pretty as punks go, and just a side of creepy. Not that I would say that out loud, especially when she was telling the captain about people trying to wreck her operation. "Did they do any damage?" asked Captain Romanon. She stilled her orange tentacles in respect, paying polite attention. "We suspect so," said Tavi. "They haven't admitted to anything, but there are traces of a certain plant in their cargo hold, which is known for spreading quickly. We fear that they have placed some nearby, but, she fidgeted, rubbing her forelegs together. "I just can't spare the workers to look for it. If we knew where exactly to send the workers, they could remove the problem without losing such much time. But not if they have to explore the entire area. Could we call upon you to do another task for us?" Captain Romanon spread her tentacles wide. "But of course, for a fee." They haggled while the rest of us waited in respectful silence. I took care not to draw attention since I was by far the tallest here, and it would look bad if I bent down to whisper to a crewmate during negotiations. I definitely wanted to, though. Of the other 4 tentacular spacefarers, 3 did excellent observational humor, and 1 was an unexpected pun master. Fweet, Nefiti, and Poe all came from the same world. Jeremy came from a multicultural hub that gave him both a non-traditional aim and a delightful way with words. He was muttering something to Nefertiti, palest blue besides dark grey. If not for me, he would be the one who stood out amongst the rest of the crew. As it was, he was one bundle of tentacles amongst many. The captain wrapped up the conversation and waved for the rest of us to follow Tavi. The construction head scuttled around the corner to a bright courtyard where a spaceship waited with its hold open. Tavi stepped inside the thing, which was exceptionally small, probably a 2-seater, and grabbed a yellow leaf off the floor. She made sure that we all got a good look at our quarry. I could smell it from an arm's length. minty and powerful, like weaponized toothpaste. I didn't say anything, but a glance at my crewmates' wrinkled faces told me their opinion. Not just me, then. Good. Tavi got us directions to where the ship had been captured and waved us on our way. She was very busy, iridescent beetle alien, with much to do. "Onwards, crew," the captain declared, twining two tentacles together, much like a human would rub their greedy hands. "Let's find some invasive plants." It was a quick flight on a spaceship such as ours. In no time at all, we were walking amongst purple-green plant life, looking for anything yellowish. No luck so far. We found lots of springy moss and giant fern things growing on all sides of the landscape, studded with natural rock pillars. I assumed that they were natural anyway. Who knew what the terraforming of this place had included? All I could say for sure was that the moon was nearly up to the standards of the high-end insect-like clientele, and that those folks at a neighboring clan were still a bitter about not claiming the place first. I was thinking about bug alien politics when a tentacle as rigid as safety brought me up short. Blocking my way like a seatbelt, Captain Romanon whistled a sharp sound of alert. She held the position, blocking me on one side and Wheat on the other while staring forward. Something tumbled onto the path a few lengths ahead of us. It didn't look dangerous, spotted and brown, fluffy, equipped with a half-dozen limbs and no coordination. Tavi had stressed the fact earlier that all of the animals here were both small and harmless, so I didn't see what the captain was worried about. When a second one trotted over the first, I was still mystified. They were a little weird-looking, what with the face tentacles, but who were we to care about that? Then the big one stepped out from behind the rock and roared at us. "Oh," I thought. "Oh, no." The crew scrambled in panic while I froze. None of us carried weapons. Why would we? Looking for plants in a place sworn to be safe. Even our delivery ship wasn't armed. We were no match for these kind of predator. The size of a hovercar, with toothly mandibles and tentacles that seemed designed to horrify my human hindbrain. And it was clearly protecting its babies, which played around its ankles, meeping happily. The captain shoved me forward. "What? Make the noises the little ones are making," she said. "This is your time to shine." "Oh," I swallowed. "I guess it is. Here goes nothing." With a deep breath and what I hoped were calming grand gestures, I faced off the terrifying thing and did my absolute best. "Meep, mew, meow." It had stopped growling and was watching in what looked like confusion. A shuffling noise behind me said that the rest of my crew had lowered themselves to an unobtrusive height and were wriggling backwards to safety. Great idea. "Meep, meek." I sank into a crouch, hoping that I looked non-threatening, instead of like I was ready to spring. The creature didn't attack. The babies remained oblivious, tussling in the moss and rolling forward to bump against my arm. I didn't move, changing my noises a little to match their play fight. They ignored me. The parent didn't. It began glancing down at the babies when it moved, so I jumped in surprise when an enormous paw appeared in my field of vision to back the little ones further along the trail. They went happily, with renewed meeping. Then, before I could react, the big one was behind me, fastening its mandibles around a mouthful of my shirt. Breath in my neck. Squirming tentacles, bristly whiskers. It was a miracle I didn't pee my pants. I found myself hauled off my feet by the alien tiger thing and dragged down the path like a particularly long kitten. I had to grab the front of my shirt to keep from choking. Even my best efforts left me gasping for breath. Then the creature leapt straight up, and my vision grayed around the edges. My senses returned as I lay on moss under a fern at the top of one of those pillars. The tiger had disappeared. Where'd it go? I wondered. Am I out of the way here, or... Ah! My vision was full of fur and tentacles as it sprang up to the top again. I scrambled back against the fern. The creature set down one of the babies, then jumped back down. Oh dear. I wasn't food, or I would have been dragged by my throat instead of carried gently. Nope. I was family. The communicator at my hip chirped, and I scrambled for it before the tiger came back. The captain's voice came through with no preamble. "You have overperformed. Tell it to let you go." "I didn't know what the sounds mean," I exclaimed. "I'm just copying the babies, and it might eat me if it thinks that I don't belong." "Understood. We'll figure something out." The tiger sprang into view again with the other cub in its mouth. I shut off the communicator before it got suspicious. To say that I was uneasy about this would be an understatement. In something of an anticlimax, Mama Tiger lay down in the shade of the fern and poured her babies to cuddle close, including me. I ended up on my side in the fetal position, with my head against the cub and my back against the alien tiger's belly. And I tried my hardest not to be incredibly concerned. I waited. It was a long wait. Plenty of time to wonder how the saboteurs had gotten creatures this side into the hold of their tiny ship, and to wonder whether those minty leaves worked like catnip. Releasing this kind of predator here would certainly wreak more havoc than any invasive plant would. I tried to listen for signs of a plan from down below, but I couldn't hear anything over the growling purr that Mama Tiger was making, and the sound of her licking the other cub. Picturing those mandibles, I dearly hoped that the crewmates would think of something before it was my turn. They did. Oh, bless them, they did, and it was brilliant. Inspired by me. A faint chattering sound from the ground level caused all three of the beasties to lift up their heads like a dog hearing the dinner bell. It sounded again, and Mama Tiger stood with a chirp that I took to mean, "Stay here." She flowed off the edge and landed far below, with more stealth than something so big should be allowed. The chattering stopped, then started again from further away. It sounded like they were a few of them, whatever they were. There was Mama again, apparently having decided that this was the perfect time for a hunting lesson. She grabbed one baby, came back for the other, then me. I took a deep breath and grabbed my collar. She was gentle. It was still terrifying. She clung to the side of the pillar and slid down awkwardly instead of leaping head first, which I deeply appreciated. I would have broken approximately all of my bones otherwise. As it was, I made it to the bottom with only a few bumps and a wild heart rate. The creature let me go with a pat on my urging me forward. She chirped at the babies and trotted off, her movements transitioning into a silent stalking posture of a cat-like creatures everywhere. The babies bounced after her. I kept close, bending over a little and feeling silly. Did I dare run? Was this the plan? She would hear if I tried to use the communicator. Speaking of which, I thought in surprise as something caught my eye. A comm unit, like mine, lay on the side of the path, at roughly the spot where the chattering sound had come from. Oh, I'm starting to get it. Clever crewmates. I made a note of where it was and hurried along. The ferns and pillars were close together here, close enough to hide a family of tentacled tigers earlier and some sort of trap now. I kept my eyes open as we approached the corner to the sound of chorus of prey animals. Mama Tiger crouched, listened, and peered around the edge. She twitched a tail which was split in two. How did I not notice the tentacled tail before? Then crept forward in utter silence. It was frightening to watch, though balanced out the cheerful clumsiness of the two cubs. They crawled around the corner, and I brought up the rear. There was very clearly a tarp thrown over something large, about the size of a wire cage that we'd been hauling bricks in. A slit was cut in the trap, with the flap pinned back over the doorway. All I could see inside was darkness. I heard the chattering of prey, and I was pretty sure I smelled meat on the breeze. Is that the chicken I was saving? Oh, fine. A good cause and all that. I couldn't see any tentacular crewmates, but I had no doubt that they were hidden close by. Mama Tiger was easing her way up to the door. I walked as quietly as I could, grateful for the moss. She reached the entrance, sniffed thoroughly, then crawled inside. I was starting to get alarmed at the lack of visible plan. Then a dark orange tentacle emerged from under the top to wave at me. The captain was waiting at the door. Got it! I meeped softly and scooped up one of the babies, setting it inside after Mama. The other one went just as tamely. I heard chewing sounds from inside the cage. Then I heard the almighty clang as the door shut in my face, followed by the captain jumping down to check the lock, and the other tentacle crew appearing from all directions. Mama Tiger roared and pawed at the door, but it was solid. I stood well back, anyway. "Good job, team," said the Captain Romanon. "That couldn't have gone better." I tried to laugh off my speeding heart. "It was a little icy there at the beginning." "You were amazing," the captain told me, while the rest of the crew backed her up. "We, would have been eaten without you, instead of your live, and many credits richer. Do you know what's going rate is for a healthy family of sneak teeth?" "Is that what they're called?" I said, still taking a deep breath. "Can't say that I disagree with the name." Beside the captain, Jeremy did a little intricate tentacle flail. "You've never heard of them? Did you imitate their calls on the first try?" Yes, it wasn't that hard," I said. "Kind of like a house cat." Captain Romanon held the tentacle up in declaration. "Double shares of the bounty for our crewmate of the hour." There was a unanimous approval at that, along with the tentacle alien equivalent of applause. Since tentacles don't make a proper clapping sound, this meant a rousing chorus of blowing raspberries. I grinned for 2 reasons. I pretended it was just for one, and thanked them humbly. We kept a tarp in place while ferrying the brick cage back to the ship. The cage had been on the harbor sled this whole time. More good thinking on the captain's part. Poe ran to get her communicator and make sure that we hadn't left anything else behind. Jeremy filled me in on the relevant details about this particular species, which was endangered and difficult to relocate. "I don't think anybody's tried impersonating one of their young before," he said. "This might be the start of a new trend." I shuddered. "Just don't ask me to do that again. Noises, yes. Being dragged by my collar up a cliff, no." "I thought your species liked climbing things," he said far too innocently. "That was not climbing. Climbing involves getting there under my own power, with no teeth in my neck. Picky, picky." We made our triumphant return to the compound, and Tabby met us outside, having heard the news on the way. She got a timid look as the creatures in the cage, standing back and flinching when Mama Tiger snarled. After taking pictures of them to show her bosses to account for the expense, she paid Captain Romanon an amount that left her very pleased. We said our goodbyes and headed for space. When I first left it up the top to feed them, I was greeted by a chorus of growls. In response, I began setting chunks of synth beef through the bars and did my best imitation of growling purr that Mama Tiger had made with a makeshift nest. A face full of mandibles and feline curiosity appeared at the bars. I waggled my fingers at her and held out more food. The babies pounced on the first pieces, meeping happily. I purred louder. Mama Tiger reached face tentacles gently through the bars and took a piece from my hand. I wanted to scritch her scary kitty head, but held out more food instead. Maybe with the next meal. End of story. I would just quickly like to thank the T5 channel members and patrons. Caspar Arnholtz, Cam Maxwell, Parky, It's Difficult to Pronounce, Lord Azrakul, and Arcadian.